Hello and welcome to the Tier 1 Interventions podcast, where we share with you tips, techniques, and strategies to strengthen your core. The core classroom, that is. Without a core classroom, we cannot thrive. Learn how to create an inclusive climate and culture and environment in the regular Tier 1 core classroom through a collaboration of the regular classroom teacher, intervention specialist, instructional coach, occupational therapist, and other direct service providers. Through this collaboration, we can blend our expertise to maximize learning for all students, and specifically students with learning disabilities. Through this, we can also eliminate the number of students needing Tier 2 and Tier 3 pull-out intervention. I want to ground this in what our purpose here is, and that is really the title of the podcast and the course and the coaching, which is Tier 1 Interventions. And what we're talking about here is transforming and transcending the regular classroom so that kids get what they need in the regular general core classroom so that we don't have to take away recess. Why can't I create a structure, a climate, and a culture? And for me, I'm a secondary math teacher, regular classroom teacher by trade. Why can't we, and I've done a lot of the transformation and I still have a lot of work to do myself through these techniques, but we should strengthen our core. And what that means is make these adaptations in our classrooms so these kids can thrive in regular instruction and they're able to get their needs met, and we're able to improve their overall access to learning by what we're doing in the regular classroom. Kids shouldn't have to be pooled in small group Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions to get what they need. Now, obviously, you have those outliers and you have those critical kids. I'm not saying that's going to be eliminated. However, there are too many kids right now that we can help regulate and remedy. I like the word Sherry used, remedy right in the Tier 1 classroom. And as we transition to our math topic, which is the course and curriculum that this podcast leads into, as we transition into our math content, we know, and we've got Krista and Amy, who are two Achievement Formula certified coaches who've been implementing these transitional Tier 1 academic adaptations and interventions as regular classroom teachers that have completely been a game changer for these kids in the regular classroom. And the math tasks that we do and the structures and the design and the delivery of the mathematics, which is different than a typical traditional math classroom, has allowed these kids to thrive and achieve higher in mathematics than they ever have before.
I did have an issue this week with a student. Like I like to, with our discussions throughout the years with you, John Lee, I've been trying to get the kids movement, and I've noticed that when I have them feel the math, that it sticks in their brain better, and they roll their eyes at me. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you're so annoying." And so part of the trick is we get just move our arms, and it's silly, but like y equals, and we just do it. And so some of the kids are all in, some of the kids don't. So there's one kiddo who's a little overweight. He's really grumpy and he didn't want to do it. So sometimes I poke him and sometimes I act like I don't notice that he's participating or not. But there was this other girl who didn't want to do it. And I was like, come on, I could do that, beg him to do anything. And she was like, he doesn't have to do it. And I lost my temper. And I'm like, goodness gracious, I'm trying so hard, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, hey, deep breath. You know, use some of these things on me that I'm, we're doing with the kids. Anyway, the point of the story is later on, her mom called me and she's, hey, my daughter said you got upset with her. And I wanted to explain that she's actually on the spectrum, but she didn't want anybody to know because she's trying to figure out strategies for herself so she can fit in. So then I felt doggy do because I was like, I didn't know that. We know better, we do better. So I didn't beat myself up too much, but this discussion today just brought her for the forefront. And so now I'm looking at, and then this other kid had this big issue, and has a 504 with an ADHD. And so I was looking online, and there was this graphic I found that was talking about autism versus ADHD. And so I'm just like looking and listening to everything you're teaching me, Sherry, and I got to get the OT in there. I got to help me figure out this kid, because this kid needs this, but this kid doesn't. So as a classroom teacher, it's very overwhelming.
Beautiful. Krista, thank you for this. I'm going to let you talk about this a little bit. Let's give a shout out right now to Peter. Peter, author of Building Thinking Classrooms. Krista has the absolute connection here. This is all the science behind why those strategies work. Krista, talk to us a little bit about your implementation, your massive implementation of the strategies in Building Thinking Classrooms that have become just a complete shift and amazing movement in math education. Talk to us about that, Krista.
I started using those vertical non-permanent thinking spaces for the movement, but like you said, this kind of connects that all into that, why that works and why that's better for our kids. So they go there and they work at the boards, and they want them to be standing, but now I'm thinking, like, what if we have stools there for them to sit, just trying to work in some more? Or what if we have a vertical board, but it's down on the floor, and so they can write on that. I'm just thinking about some ways that I can offer some flexible seating within that vertical spaces piece of that Building Thinking Classrooms.
I don't want us to miss. It's a very subtle and easy thing that we can do as educators. And it's one that we question as educators much of the time. When I do trainings on transforming Tier 1 math classrooms, much of the transformation includes novelty, gaining student perspective, open-endedness. And the questions that I get a lot is, yeah, but when do you actually teach? When do you do the teaching? When do this? When? It's so conflicting with typical traditional math delivery. And we're not choosing one over the other. We're not, and this is why I like to call it transcendence rather than transformation. Transformation really indicates a change, and we do want a change, but it almost implies giving up one thing to do a new thing. And that's not what I'm asking us to do. And I'm going to give you an example of this in a moment, but transcendence means creating that new path that includes the old school stuff that still makes an impact and the new learning that we have that makes an even better impact, and blending those. And let me give an example. We say, research that we don't want to change things up and have too much novelty. But Daniel Pink in his book Drive says one of the major motivators of human behavior and motivation of kids in our classroom is novelty. Expecting the unexpected will stimulate their interest in doing what we're doing. But then we think, as a classroom teacher, that conflicts with when we say, oh no, these kids that have some of these learning disabilities and processing issues and ADHD, they need routine, they need structure. I want you to think about, and I know some of you may not have been able to see it, but in Teresa's PowerPoint, she kept up with a routine and a structure. Because what I'm advocating for is we have both. We have routine and structures in place. However, she changed the color of the background of the PowerPoint. She changed the action. Every day there was a breathing exercise, but the type of breathing changed. So you see, we can actually combine routine and structure with novelty and unexpected. And we need both of those to function, to have good executive functioning skills. We need both of those. We need the routine. We need the procedural. We need all of that. We also need this novelty and this unexpected, which is exactly what I talk about This is the whole point of making Mathaniers, that we have to live in both lands in the Tier 1 classroom. Have to give opportunities for procedural, algorithmic, step-by-step, routine-based, because that's a skill that we want kids to thrive with. But at the same time, we want them to be able to know what to do when they don't know what to do. We want them to be able to regulate in an unexpected situation. We want them to be able to attend to and be stimulated, and novelty will do that. And the bread and butter of these Tier 1 interventions academically are exactly what Teresa showed. What do you see? What do you notice? Tell me about. If we leave with nothing else, transitioning from, okay, the movement, the breathing, we can get the body ready for the brain to be cognitively stimulated. The very next step to enter into an academic lesson is to stimulate the brain, that cognition. And the way that I do that routinely is with my favorite prompts. What do you see? What do you notice? And tell me about. The other way that we have created this new structure for mathematics is through this Tier 1 math intervention core strengthening course and curriculum. We call this the Adaptive Condensed Math Curriculum. If you are on the hunt for new textbooks or you're up for curriculum adoption, I want you to step back and rethink what that might look like. Because Tier 1 math intervention course and curriculum, this adaptive condensed curriculum for mathematics, gives you everything you need to teach all of your standards from preschool through high school in mathematics with 12 tasks that we call reference tasks. These 12 tasks adapt everything that Sherry and Teresa present and teach us, but they also target all of our math standards, narrowing it down to these 12 essentials. I call them the dirty dozen. There are 12 reference tasks that are exactly the same for every grade level, preschool through high school, but the level of complexity increases as we move through the grades. And the goal is, in our Tier 1 regular core math classroom, that kids are exposed to all 12 of these every year throughout the year. So frequent, often, and early. These are the 12 tasks. Don't worry, they are, because I'm going to tell you how they're being rolled out through this course. Pizza problem, 120 chart, paper folding, making rectangles, quick dots, locker problem, Jessie and Kay, geoboard, candy problem, paint problem, staircase, and function machine. These are the only reference tasks you need to teach all of your curriculum, and there are multiple variations of each one. The result, the remedy, the reason these are the remedy for fixing poor math achievement, and let's face it, math scores are dismal. They're dismal. And we're looking for the solution. We're here to tell you this is the solution. But it's going to take rethinking what your Tier 1 math classroom looks like. Because these reference tasks are the remedy to increase greatly math achievement like we've never seen before, that's truly what transcendence is. Getting results based on a new path that we've paved, that these results are things we've never seen before. This adaptive condensed curriculum has 12 sessions, one for each of the reference tasks. Today, we're going to go in depth with paper folding from the introduction through what each interaction looks like. The implementation of these tasks happen like this. In the math classroom, as a regular classroom math teacher, I think of my year in seasons. The first season of instruction is what we call first 15 days. And this happens immediately at the beginning of the school year. In August, September, when the school year starts, the first 15 days of math exposes all 12 of these reference tasks. Now, so that you're not overwhelmed, some schools choose 4 of these, or 3 of them, or 8 of them, just to ease in each year. But in the first 15 days of school, you're exposing as many of these reference tasks as possible at an exposure level only. And Kirk makes mention, please do not use the Touch Math curriculum. See, this is my love-hate relationship with all curriculums, with all textbooks, with all digital resources, no matter what you use. I could name any of them. I could name Bridges, Investigations. I could name Go Math, Big Ideas, Glencoe, McGraw-Hill. I can name any of those. They're all the best and they're all the worst. See, this is what I like to do. I like to dive into all of these curriculums and I like to pull the best pieces from them and just use that sliver. That's what Sherry and I's Tier 1 interventions does. That's why it's called the Adaptive Condensed Curriculum, because it's a combination of everything that's out there and the best pieces of it, backed in cognitive science and research-based and created by Minds on Math for the math curriculum. So great point, Kirk, on that. Guys, this is so important, actually more important than the math content, because through this sensory delivery, your kids will improve their number sense. Think about the understanding that kids will have of the number 8, even at the high school level, through these sensory delivery systems. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through each of the color paper strips because I purposefully do not give kids these sensories at first. Remember in those pre-paper folding? I just want kids to give their perspective abstractly. I don't want to give them sensory stuff, and I want to tell them this is going to be difficult. You're not going to know a lot yet, because I'm assessing what they already know about number. Because some kids innately, automatically know more about number without any of these techniques. They actually know more about number than I do. I need to know that. For other kids, they're not going to be able to engage with 2 to the negative 3 or 8, or like they're going to be in fight or flight mode because that's what math notation and symbol does to them. I need to know that. But I need to assess that in a very raw, abstract form for just a few interactions. Then I'm ready to move into the sensory based.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Janet, I love the angle breathing. I love it. And you were asking a little bit about what angle. I think my thought was whatever angle you're going to work on that day. So if you're working on 30-degree angles, use 30-degree angles in your breathing. If you're going to be working on isometric triangles, use isometric triangles as your breathing source.
I already do it. I always say, I'll have the kids like start the arms and they'll say 180s. Then we'll start like this. We'll go cute, right, up 2, sub 2, sub 2, right. And then when we go on to supplementary and complementary angles, I'll go, okay, we're in junior high now, so we want to start working out. So like, oh, look at those nice muscles. I'm going to compliment myself. And then I'll say, oh, now I'm really serious. Now I'm going to take supplements. And then I'm going to get bigger and bigger in supplement angles. So I'm just thinking I could try to do it more often, like adjacent angles, vertical, just to use it as a breathing, but also to keep saying it over and over because we did it. And then the state test got mixed up and I wanted to beat them all up, but that's okay. They're kids.
You are the best.
So
Gina,
I want to emphasize something else. You've got the right angle here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you flip it upside down, trying to keep that angle there.
Yeah.
Okay. What you've just done biomechanically is you've used your entire rotator cuff.
Oh.
Rotator cuff is weak. Okay? So if you can come up with some exercise that pounds the, you can then start working on the rotator cuff a little bit, since that's typically a weak section of the shoulder. And that will wake up the proprioception and the vestibular system.
But this is mathematically important too. Let's not skim by this. So not only does it do the physical, which we need, but right angles are not always upright like this. And that's the other thing that we create misconceptions is we want kids doing that to be like, okay, now what angle is this? Oh gosh, guess what? It's still a right angle. It's still a right angle, even though it changed positions. A lot of times at kindergarten, first grade, if we have a square that's tilted, kids, if it's the same square, I could have a physical square and kids are like, that's a square, all congruent sides. If I'm like, what is it now? It's not a square. Do you see? It's still a square. It's the same shape. Yeah. I think that is the same instruction. It's still a right angle, whether it looks upside down. This is
called a zombie.
And
a zombie right angle.
Yeah.
And then do you have them do like acute? Like
well, now,
the opposite?
Zombies.
If you do this where they're coming back here.
I will now.
That's internal rotation, and that is probably the weakest part of the rotator cuff. Trying to get kids at that angle. I don't know if I can do this and that you're going to be able to hear me, but this is very much a good exercise. This is going to be a good exercise for your kids. I have to turn around and do this. Okay? One arm's going over the top. The other arm is coming through the bottom, and the idea is touch your fingers together.
Oh, wow.
Okay? Senior citizens get that tested with them, and how far apart your fingertips are tells how bad your rotator cuff is, and it's a prediction of falls. So, by doing that internal rotation and stuff, you've done a quick exercise that is going to wake the brain up. It's vestibular, it's proprioceptive, it's interoceptive, and you just woke their shoulders up for writing or math or whatever, anything that you got to put them down on paper. And you really practiced a weak link in our physiology.
Wow.
So everybody found something beneficial today. Right. Then we will see you on May 18th for this. And our subject is quick dots.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to quick dots. And then moving forward over the summer, we won't have anything directly, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put something new in each month over the summer. So there will be more material added. It's just not going to be live over the summer. Okay. And then in September, the third week in September, what's the date there, John Lee? Can you look it up real quick? The third week in July, September, we are going to start these live again.
September 21st, $947 to get all of next year.
You've been listening to Tier 1 Interventions with John-Elise Suspanzik and Sherry Daughter. Tier 1 Interventions is released on the first and third Tuesday of the month. I'm Nicholas King, an intern for Sherry Daughter Educational Consulting,